Running fans, jumping fans, throwing fans, all around athletics fans, welcome to the Talking in Ovals podcast. I'm Alex Cuesta, partner in crime over there, Dave Hyatt. What's going on, my brother?
Not much over here, just I love that we're right in the middle of this great cross country season. What a great nutty cone that we had. I'm sure we'll get into that later on, but I mean, I was, a little surprised by the women's result, but I shouldn't have been, but I thought it was kind of a statement run, but we'll get more into that in a little bit.
We certainly will. Before we get into all the fun stuff, today is episode 60, and we are recording on a Tuesday, not a Monday today, but Tuesday, October 17th, 2023. If you like what you hear today, like, share, follow, subscribe, rate us 5 stars. Spread this word of mouth. I know there's a bunch of runners, a bunch of coaches that listen to this, and I know some of you talk to each other when you see each other at meets. Keep spreading it. Keep on telling everybody that this is the podcast to go to if you want great stories, great talk about the world of athletics, track and field, cross country, all the above. Keep on doing that and definitely give us a good rating because that's how we boost up in all of these, iTunes, Spotify. It really does help. It's not meaningless. 5 stars is the only number you're allowed to give, though. If you give that, if you give anything less, we will track you down. We're fast. We might be slower than we used to be. We're fast still in small spurts. Okay. So, thank you again for always listening. Go find us on the socials at Talking in Ovals. So last week's show, really quick, we had Brian Decker. He is the head cross country coach over at Point Borough in Jersey. And, we had a wonderful Ocean County class, Ocean County championships where Borough Hyatt, if I remember correctly, you told me they finished second overall.
Yes.
Yep. They placed second. So they had a solid meet there. I know
they placed second to one of our former guests, Scotty Baker. So congratulations to Southern Regional.
Yes. And, it was just good overall meet. Oh, Ocean County Championships, always fast. OCP is really fast. So that's always fun. We're going to jump right into our PRs because we got some PRs this week. Our good friend, Coach Geiger over at Lacey, sent us some. So at first, we have Andrew Tatasher. He ran a 15:53 for first time dropping under 16, and this was all at the Ocean County Championship. So big congrats to Andrew there.
Third place overall. Katrina Conti ran a 20:59, hit her first time under 20, and that's a 22nd PR. And then Jillian Riccio, I hope I didn't ruin your name, 22:36 and first time under 23 and a 42nd PR. So really good stuff there. Congrats to all the Lacey runners. Congrats to Coach Geiger because, and Andrew Tatasher there finishing third. That's really fun. And before we jump into the show, got to talk about our buddy Andrew Nalvin's event going on again, November 4th, the River Rock and Run Relay over in Brick. If you want any information, go on the Facebook, just go search River Rock N, the letter N, Run Relay, and you'll see the page there. You'll see the registration link there. Go register. It is a 5K run. You can either do it as 2 people in relay, 1.5 miles each, or you could just run a straight up 5K. There'll be some food at the end. There'll probably be some beer at the end. So go sign up. Have some fun if you're near Bricktown, or even if you're not, go run a fun race. It's always a good time. So this week, I think we have our first repeat guest. This is our first repeat. It is, and I'm very excited about it.
I am excited, and I'm pumped that he's friendly enough that, anytime I ask, he always is like, oh, I can find a day for you. I could do this. And he really doesn't have to because in the world of running, he's, pretty well known. He's a really good writer. He is Jonathan Gault, a staff writer for Let'sRun.com. What's going on, Jonathan?
Oh, not much. Thanks for having me on, Alex. It's always enjoyable to come on, talk some track with you guys. I know you're very passionate about it. So, yeah, it's a pleasure.
Yeah, we always appreciate the time that you're willing to give. And we know you're a busy guy and writing some fantastic articles, always doing research for something really cool. And, just it's nice of you to always jump on. So I want to start off right away. We had in my eyes, I think Dave will agree, a absolutely fantastic outdoor season last year. There were a lot of good performances, a lot of, if you're thinking about Faith Kipyegon, Seyfin Hassan, Jakob Ingebrigtsen, and Noah Lyles. There's just so many to choose from. I want to start off right here. What was your favorite male performance last year, and what was your favorite female performance individually?
It's a tough one. I mean, because there are a lot of different ways to pick it. We got all these world records, but then there were also some really great head-to-head showdowns, especially at the World Championships. I would say probably my favorite female performance, I got to go with the GOAT, Faith Kipyegon in Florence, 3:49 world record. Yeah. This was something she was targeting in 2022, and she came up just short. And it was the one hole in her resume. Remember, at the start of the year, it seems a long time ago, she didn't have any world records. And now she has the mile and the 1500. She had the 5K, it was broken. And that one, not just to break it, but to take almost an entire second off of it. And then to see all the other athletes in the field celebrating with her. I just thought that was a really cool moment for one of the, greatest distance runners we've ever seen.
Certainly. Dave, do you have a favorite female one of your own?
I don't know if I have a favorite moment, but I think, and I was shocked that this person wasn't nominated for Female Athlete of the Year. I'm just amazed by the range that Sifan Hassan has. It's like something that we've never, ever seen. The fact that, 45 days after getting third in the 1500 at the World, she's running a marathon in 2 hours and 13 minutes. That's just absolutely mind-boggling. And sometimes I think, the triple jump gets a little overlooked, but she's a dominant jumper, and it's just I think a lot of times we might focus too much on the track at times, but some of the field events this year were just absolutely insane.
Mine would definitely be Sha'Carri Richardson. The path that she's come on from missing the Olympic Games many moons ago, it seems like forever now because of, smoking some weed or whatever and all that. And then now to come back, talking all of her ish, kind of seeming like going through a little roller coaster on social media with her emotions, to just come in laser focus this year, become a world champion, and just the advocacy for the athletes. And I think that I love what she was saying all throughout Worlds, where she was trying to advocate for athletes to, just be better treated and be more noticed and things like that. And I thought Sha'Carri had a breakout year and had such a really good performance and definitely put herself as she's a legitimate threat to any other sprinter. She's obviously a world champion and set herself up really well for the Olympics. So that's my, female performance to her winning the Worlds. So males, Jonathan, going around to you, what's your favorite male performance?
I think I got to go with the men's 1500 at Worlds and Josh Kerr. Now, in absolute terms, was this the single best run of the year? Probably not. Lamechia Gomez set a world record in the steeplechase. Jakob Ingebrigtsen ran faster in the mile and the 1500, but that race, that's the one that's going to stick with me, just like the 2022 final with Jake Whiteman, because Ingebrigtsen had been so good all year, but Josh Kerr, when he needed to be, he was at his best. Jakob was not, and you can say maybe he was sick or maybe he wasn't, but just summoning that last lap, 52 seconds, against such a great athlete in Ingebrigtsen, I think I got to go with Kerr on this one.
Certainly. Hyatt, jumping to you. What's your favorite male performance?
I think it's got to be Ryan Krauser breaking the world record in a shot put. I mean, that guy is as dominant as, but there was also Mondo too. It's, I don't know. I'm leaning a little towards the field events this year, just because they're just, sometimes they get overlooked, and we saw some ridiculous performances in those areas. But I mean, Ryan Krauser is just an absolute monster. He's just, and then he changed his whole form, his whole spin, and is going to be better for it. It's just unbelievable.
You kind of stole my thunder, but mine was Ryan Krauser winning Worlds with the blood clots. That to me is you sit there and you hear that, and any other athlete in any other sport is blood clots out for half the year. Not competing. This is serious. And the whole world's going to know. It's going to be all over ESPN. Ryan Krauser, I don't even think made a highlight on ESPN. Winning the Worlds, being the record holder, and then winning the world championships in the shot put with the blood clots. That's my performance of the year, just because it's so gutsy. And it reminds me of, we all watch Without Limits and things like that. And the scene where Prefontaine sets a meet record and wins the 5K and his foot's torn in half and bleeding. That's what I attributed this to. Ryan Krauser just basically not being able to train, battling through, setting up a new regimen, gearing up, and still winning the Worlds. I thought that was a really, really cool time. So with all these performances, Jonathan, we all talked about a bunch of great athletes, and they had a lot of great times. All these athletes, are you expecting them to all continue to carry this greatness into the next, 5 years, 10 years, whatever we have with them?
Yeah, it's interesting because I think some of them are different points in their career. Kip Yegon has already been the best in her event for a number of years, so it's hard to see her going that much longer, especially she said she wants to move up to the roads. So I'm guessing after Paris, she might start doing that. But, and like Sha'Carri, she's still only 23 years old. So she's on the upswing. I think she could stick around if she can stay focused like she did this year. She could be the best for the next 2 Olympic cycles, but that's also going to be a loaded event. I mean, you've got the Jamaicans. They're not going to be happy about getting beat in Budapest, so they'll be coming for hard next year.
There's a high school kid out there now who's like, I am coming too.
And I think Shericka Jackson.
There's always someone.
Shericka Jackson's going to be out for blood, I think, because she's like next in like the Jamaican hierarchy. So I really think she's going to be someone that's looking at Sha'Carri going, she did it, why not me? Type of deal.
Yeah. The interesting thing about that, though, is all of her rivals are significantly older than Sha'Carri. It's Jackson, Marie-Jose Talu, Fraser Price, and Elaine Thompson-Herah. They're all in their 30s, basically. Whereas I guess the one person you would say is Julian Alfred, who just came onto the scene from the University of Texas and St. Lucia. She could be the one who's kind of pushing Sha'Carri and is around her age. But those other women, at some point, you think they would start to decline a little bit, whereas Sha'Carri could still be improving.
And I'm sure there's some sophomore high school somewhere who's just going to be like coming up, and we're going to talk about her in 2 or 3 years.
So, Jonathan, just a quick question. Where does Abby Steiner fit into this? Because I think we can all say she had a semi-disappointing year this year in terms of what she came in from college and what she was able to do after a grueling college season. One has to expect that she does take a step up next year because for what she came in as, she should be in those finals. She was
hurt, though, too.
She was a little injured. But in the end, like, we're hoping this year in Paris, like, there's no reason Abby shouldn't be in the at least the 200 conversation with the finals there. Do you expect her to kind of jump into that echelon?
It's hard because with how good Gabby Thomas and how good Shericka Jackson are, that's just a tough event to break up. And now Sha'Carri seems to be figuring out the 200 as well. Yeah. But yeah, she was so good at Kentucky last year. Right. You would have to think, I think the 200, that's an event where she could contend and would be a potential medal threat next year if she can get healthy. The 100, I don't think that's ever going to be her event. The 400, she's got some good. She's helpful on relays for sure. Mm-hmm. But I don't know if I think the 200 is kind of a sweet spot.
Definitely, I agree.
So I have a question. So this year was very unique in the sense that it's the first time that we've had 3 straight years of championship. Worlds, and then Olympics. That's never happened. Do you think that was the reason why we didn't see like everyone compete like the Michael Normans, and why Sydney and I think kind of kept it a little bit low key? And do you think that everyone who kind of kept it low key this year, that they did that because they were kind of gunning for next year?
Kind of, sort of. I mean, we do see this every so often. We see it like it used to just be Worlds, Olympics, Worlds. You would see 3 in a row. What is unprecedented is seeing 4 and 5 in a row, which was what we're going to get the next 2 years. But I do think a lot of athletes, talking to them on the circuit, they are starting to say like, hey, it has been a lot. And then knowing that no one's going to take off the Olympic year, right? So some people are saying, man, I got to go through this whole season and then I got to gear up for the Olympics next year. Mentally, it is tough for some of them, but some of them love it. They're like, I love competing. I love that we have world championships. And I think the ones that didn't, maybe Sydney McLaughlin-Lavroni is the one you would point to as thinking a little bit longer term, though I do think she wanted to run the 400 a few times this year. But Michael Norman, I'm sure he wanted to run the 100 this year. He was just injured, and we saw that clearly. The Diamond League, I think it was Doha, whichever one he ran, he just didn't look right. And then after that, you could say, okay, something's wrong. He showed up to USA's, got spanked, and he was like, yeah, I'm not healthy. So I think a lot of the athletes who weren't at Worlds or weren't these big factors, I just think it was more because they were injured rather than they were saving themselves for the Olympic year.
We were so spoiled by Worlds 2 years ago where everyone from USA basically showed up and dominated. Then now we just wanted to see more of them. So my last individual question, I think, before we jump on to another question, another topic here. Have you heard anything about Donovan Brazier? What is his status right now? Because, I feel like we got to see just basically a tip of him. He ran so well. He set the American record in the 800, and then he's just been injured. What is the gauge in the track world with him? And are we going to get to see a healthy version, or hopefully a healthy version of him coming into this season?
I mean, that's what everyone wants, right? He's such an electrifying talent, but his recovery from these injuries, it's becoming a major issue, and he doesn't want it to be the story of his career. He doesn't want it to be, oh wow, he was so great that one year, but he could have been even better. And what if the Olympics weren't postponed in 2020? Could he have won? Like, he really doesn't like that. He just wants to be on the start line. But he's had these leg injuries that have just will not go away, and he had to have a follow-up surgery. And I spoke to him in March, and he was basically like, yeah, we'd like to compete, but we're not going to rush into it. I think 2021, if that wasn't an Olympic year, he might not have run the Olympic trials final. But he's like, look, the Olympics, they only come every 4 years.
Yeah.
I need to take my shot. Last year, World Championships are on home soil. He had the bye. He didn't need to qualify. What's wrong with going out there and at least giving it a shot? He wanted to run on home soil. And this year, there wasn't the same sense of urgency. It wasn't like, he wants to run the World Championships, but he wasn't going to be pressuring himself and screwing himself over for the Olympic year. So the hope is that because he didn't race this year, it was because he was doing everything carefully. He didn't want to rush back. He didn't want to re-injure himself. But the longer the guy gets from being at his top level, the more you have to worry. Like, we're at, when he runs next year, if he runs next year in 2024, we'll be 4 years removed from his best. He was really, really good in 2020, showed some flashes in 2021, but that wasn't peak Brazier. And the longer that he goes from competing, it's disappointing, because he's a very likable guy. He's a huge talent. He's a world champion American record holder, but at some point you got to race.
Yeah. I just want one more year. I just want one more year with him, because for me, it's like, we've seen some good times in the 800, but I feel like the 800 is a wide open event. Like, there are some really good guys. They put up great times, but there hasn't been that dominant person that we've seen, in the past, where we've had Kip Kidder, we'd have Rudisha, we'd have people that are just, they're going to go out there. They're the person to beat. There hasn't been that guy. And we thought it was going to be Brazier, right? Like, when he was coming up, it was like, all right, Donovan's event. And we've had some good runners, especially Americans. We've had Clayton, we had Bryce Hoppel. Like, we've had some good people, but it's like, I just want, if he has one more redemption year, comes back and wins an Olympics, he can ride off into the sunset, having 2 great years, having an amazing resume, and that would be awesome. So, Dave, what was
I just want to know, what was your opinion on the transition for Sid and I think to Coach Kersey? Like, do you think that was handled well this season? Do you think that they should have raced more? I mean, obviously, a thing came out and ran a 154 at the end of the year. So, is it like we were just kind of getting ready for the Olympics? We ran a lot the last couple of years. Maybe Sydney getting married, she wanted to spend more time with her family. I don't know, but I felt like there were a few times where she was going to race, like in LA, and then she pulled out. We actually had on Clayton Murphy the day after, and he was pretty upset that she pulled out. So, how do you think that transition went? And do you think that nobody's going to care about this question come next year at this time?
I mean, it might still look, if they run well at the Olympics, that's all the mainstream people are going to care about. That's still going to be huge deals. Nike will be happy, but for track fans, you want to see them compete more. And I think what we saw this year is they don't have a huge interest in competing. Sydney and Athing Mo specifically. If you look at the rest of Kersey, people are like, oh, this is a Bobby Kersey thing. He's trying to be too cute. And maybe partially that's true, but you look at his other athletes. Kenny Harrison was out there running all year. It's not like he's saving her.
He ran a lot.
Yeah, exactly.
She ran a lot.
So to me, it's more, Sydney's been pretty clear, like, she puts a lot of pressure on herself. She feels a lot of pressure from the outside. And when you don't race very much, that pressure just intensifies, because now the races you do run, there's even more attention on them and more scrutiny. So she doesn't seem to like racing that much. And Athing Mo, it's a little different, because she was basically like, look, this was her first year under Kersey, right? Sydney had been there for a year or two. This one was her first go around, and she said between moving from Texas to LA and having had 2 long years, we can say long years. She called them long years. She ended her 2022 season in July at Worlds, but to her, that was a long year. 2021, certainly a long year, going from college all the way to the Olympic Games. She just felt like it was a lot, and she didn't really want to be out there again. as much as in previous years. So I'm going to be interested to see, is that the new normal for Thing Mo? Because her first year as a pro, 2022, she raced quite a lot. She was doing 400s. She ran one Diamond League, but she was running a lot before Worlds, and then she got hurt and didn't run the end of the season. So are we going to go back to 2022 with a Thing? And she's racing a lot. She's enjoying the sport more, or is what we saw this year going to be the new normal? And that is something I'm going to be watching closely. And I know all track fans want to see her out there running more, want to see her competing more. I guess it's kind of up to her.
And
go ahead, Dave.
One more thing. Do you think that Femke Bol has certainly closed the gap on Sid, or do you think that Sid's back and race is great, that she'll prevail and she'll be dominant again? And do you think she'll run the 400 hurdles? Do you think she'll go for the double, or do you think she'll run the flat four? I mean, these are questions because she's so tight-lipped that we just don't know.
Yeah, I don't think even Sydney knows. She was saying that at the start of this year. She didn't know. She usually just defers to Bobby Kersey on all this stuff. She has a ridiculous amount of faith in him. So I don't know what she's doing. The most interesting scenario is that she does the 400 hurdles, and that Thing Mo does the 400 800. I really hope Bobby Kersey lets them do that, even though he doesn't really seem interested in having them race against each other. But to get to your question about Bol, undeniably, she's closed the gap. I mean, if you look at her times from this year, she'd never broken 52 seconds. She gets down to 51:45. That's a time only Sid has run faster than in her last two world records. It's
and she races all the time.
Yeah. So I think the other thing about Bol is how fast she ran indoors with that world record in the 400.
Oh, yeah.
Sydney McLaughlin, the Roni, she ran 48.7 outdoors. She's clearly good at the 400 too. But if Bol is running 49.1 indoors, she's clearly capable of going well under 49 seconds outdoors as well. So when you put that together with the gap, closing the gap in the 400 hurdles, yeah, I don't think Sydney's a slam dunk. But if you give me both of them against each other in the Olympics next year, I'm still going to pick Sydney.
When I just look at it, it's like when Sid and a Thing decided to compete, like how many races did they have all year? 4 apiece, 5 apiece, maybe? It wasn't a lot. And you look at it, it's like getting LeBron and Curry and expecting to see them at least 70 to 80 games and then 20, but they're healthy scratches the other 60. So it's like, as a track fan, it's selfishly you want to see him compete. So I was happy to see what people like Noah Lyles, Femke Bol, Jakob Ingebrigtsen did, where they were just gunning for everything. And speaking of all those people, we've had some great meets this year. I think, me and Dave came on every week, I think, saying it's a great week in track and field. You cover it all. You see it all. What was your favorite meet this year?
I always like the Worlds. I feel like it's kind of cheating to just pick the World Championships because it's the only meet that hands out gold medals. So I'm going to exclude the Worlds because it's kind of in a different category. If you're talking about all the other meets, I got to go with the Pre-Classic. I've been covering the Pre-Classic since my first year on the track beat. 2014 was the first track meet I ever covered for Let'sRun.com. 2014 Pre-Classic. And this one may have been the best of the bunch. Now, had a little help because it was a Diamond League final, so you got everyone showing up. But, man, the mile and 3K on the men's side. We had a world record in the 5,000, world record by Mondo in the pole vault. The women's 800, American record by Thing Mo. It was just great performance after great performance, all packed into 2 days. It was awesome. It was the best of our sport, and it wasn't quite sold out. It didn't look that way, but good crowds, good atmosphere. Like this wasn't like, oh, no one showed up, day 2 of USA's or something.
Oof.
That meet was really, really awesome, and it was cool to have it in the US. I think that Pre-Classic, I would say, my favorite meet of the year.
Now, do you hear the same sentiment from athletes that we might be reading on Twitter, that they're kind of getting sick of everything being at Hayward Field, like because of the travel and the expense of the, like everything goes up and they go, like it seems like a lot of athletes are like, hey, can we get somewhere else? Like, do we keep having to go back to Hayward Field all the time? Or is that just kind of noise that's just kind of overblown?
No, I feel like I don't hear as much from athletes in the mix zone, but I certainly see it on Twitter. The sprinters, most of them are pretty unfiltered on Twitter, and they'll just say, man, like, we're going back to Eugene, like, again for the trials. It is expensive to get, like, the athletes their travel's covered pretty much. The best guys, they're going to be put up in the nice hotels. The sponsor is going to take care of it. But getting their families out there is not cheap, finding lodging for them. So, yeah, I do think there's a desire for them to have meets somewhere else. The problem is, like, where are you going to put them?
That's the issue, right?
Sacramento's hosted in the past.
You don't think an SEC school would take it? Like one of those big time SEC schools that is known for, like there's your Arkansas, your Florida States, like your places like that
LSU,
world class LSU areas. You don't think they would welcome a Diamond League championship or something like that?
They have the facilities to do it, but I don't know if they have the desire to put on a meet like that. You have to have a local organizing committee that's interested in putting it on. And I know that, some of these places do have people who put on like SEC meets or the Texas relays, something like that. Florida has the Florida relays or whatever. Like they put on college meets. So there is some kind of infrastructure there, but this stuff costs money to stage, it's not like you're getting all the entry fees from these relay meets and making a huge money maker. There is some financial risk there, and who's going to put their neck on the line if things don't go well. So you really need to find someone who can put together money and organizational skills to host these things at a college facility. And in most places, I don't really see that existing.
I just think it's crazy that we don't have
Dave, that's our new mission. We have to get some college ADs on the show and just be like, hey, host some pro meets, damn it.
I just don't know. Like it's crazy that, in this great country of ours, we don't really have a track only facility that's not at a college. I mean, we have like in Stadium in New York, but that's a pain to get to. Like we don't have many that are track only facilities.
Hard to think of on the top of your head.
Yeah, I mean, outdoors, I struggle to think of one. Indoors, the track at New Balance, I would say that one counts. That's a really nice facility.
Ocean Breeze is nice.
Yeah, the Armory is basically track is the main thing now. That wasn't built for track and field. So yeah, you have it indoors, but outdoors, I don't know. It's just who is the person who would buy that? You need some sort of eccentric billionaire type. Like Phil Knight Phil Knight is basically the kind of person you would want it, and he did build his one. It's just attached to the University of Oregon. But you need someone who is willing to take, pour a lot of money in and maybe not get anything in return.
Now, is it a curse that like all the high schools and colleges have them essentially? Because I've heard in other countries, your high schools and colleges all don't have tracks. Like they have like a central track that they go to practice and things like that. But in America, you'd be remiss to find a high school that doesn't have some semblance of a track. Now, Dave, who's coaching over at Manasquan now, has a J for a track.
It's on 250 meters,
something.
yes.
It's a J. It's weird. But in America, like almost every high school has an outdoor track. Like you don't have indoors, and most colleges, even though I went to Marist, we don't. But most colleges do have outdoor tracks. So is it kind of the curse that there's no reason to really build a professional track and field? Because number one, it's not huge in terms of sponsorships and moneymaker. And number two, let's just go run at a high school. Let's just go run at a really good college facility that holds 40,000 people already, like things like that. Is that the mentality?
Yeah, I think pro organizers would say, why would we need to build a pro-only facility when so many of them exist already? We can just sort of rent out a space, which I think is fine. I don't think that's an issue. I guess some of these facilities, how many do we actually have that are like World Athletics Category 5 or whatever the best ones are? But if you found someone who really wanted to make pro track and field happen, they could say, oh, we'll do it at some of these college things. You can probably work with the college facility owners to figure out a deal, just pay them a little money, rent it out. I think the bigger issue is finding someone to fund all of it. It's always about the money.
Yep. Yeah, that is the biggest issue. Dave, do you have a favorite meet this year? Do you want me to go first and I'll give you some time?
Yeah, I mean, as of now, I'll probably take the easy way out and say the Worlds, just because every night was just electric. I wish that we got more of the international feed that we could watch, and it wasn't all just the NBC coverage from I wish it was on Peacock like Diamond League with the international feed, and they didn't go to commercials and they just showed every event. But
show the damn 10K.
in its entirety.
In its entirety. Even if you want to picture it while you're going to a field event, but show it. But anyway, my actually favorite, I go back to college and indoor, was Valentine's. I believe it was Valentine's when we had, what was it, like 40 people go sub 4?
No, I think there were 70 people.
70 people. It was Valentine's or Terriers. It was one of the big B.
One of them in Boston, yeah.
Yeah, and it was like 70 people going sub 4. And to me, it was just like the overall like clownish nature of that. Because I remember, man, it wasn't that long ago that I was at Marist. It feels like, 10 years is a long time, but still, it's more than 10 years. But I remember being a freshman in 07, and it was the first time I ever saw somebody break 4 going to BU. And it was like 2 people. It was 2 teammates that did it. I think it was 2 Providence kids. They went, and it was amazing. We were all standing, cheering, pumped. We were watching them go through, and boom, they hit the mark. The crowd goes nuts. And now it's just like,
well, now there are guys breaking it in like heat 10.
If the first 7 heats don't break 4, you're like, what the hell's wrong with that scrub? He must have lied on his time. Like, it's ridiculous. Jonathan, what do you make of this?
Oh, I mean, I'm the same way, Alex. I remember when I was a freshman in 2009, 2010 at Dartmouth, and we'd go down for BU. And yeah, there was one meet where I think 5 guys broke 4 in the same race. We're like, 5 guys under 4 minutes? Like, in the mile, the same race, the winning time is 3. Yeah, exactly. The winning time is 3:57. Our minds were blown. It was like, that was so cool. And
it's crazy because you're at Dartmouth, which is a really good middle distance school too. Like, you guys do have guys that are running close to 4, like, in those final heats too. So
yeah, but no, I'm with you. I think part of it, part of the allure is not as what it was because you see more and more people do it. But I also remember BC had a kid who broke 4 this year, and he crosses the finish line. He sprints over to his friends. They're all going insane. Like, you'll see people from these D3 schools who break 4, and their whole team is just losing their minds. It's still cool. Like, just because more people do it, it's always going to have some magic. And it's really fun to see people breaking 4 minutes for the first time. Like, you ask maybe not the guys who didn't really run the mile indoors in college. They do it for the first time as a pro, and it's like some January rust buster. But for the milers, they're going to remember their first time sub 4. It's, it's like you remembering, like, when I remember the first time I broke 10 minutes in the 2 mile or 5 minutes in the mile. Like, those are big barriers.
Yeah,
exactly.
Milestones that you get to, it's like, because then you try to hit them. It's like, all right, I broke 5, now 550. Now, no, 450, 440, 430. And you definitely have those. And, we remember it. Yeah. But you can also become like Johnny Gray, who we had on, who was calling people that ran 146, 147, basically scrubs because he's a 142 guy and he just thinks on a different plane of running. Speaking of all the people running fast, how much does the tech, does the new training, does obviously the gear, the super shoes were the talk of the year. How much do you attribute what we saw in terms of so many fast times to all those combination of things?
I think it's a good chunk. The shoes clearly work. They clearly have an effect. We've seen basically every distance world record broken since the shoes were introduced. And some of those had lasted a long time before they came along, right? Like Bekele and the 5K and the 10K. The women's 5K had stood for, I think, 12 years before G'day broke it. And now that thing's getting broken every other week, it seems like. So definitely the shoes have an effect. Definitely the pacing lights. But in some of these events, it's also the people at the front of the race. Like, why did we see so many fast men's 1500 times? Yeah, shoes are better.
Eric Sawinski exists.
Yeah, Eric Sawinski. And then when he drops out, Jakob Ingebrigtsen, the best guy, is making sure that every Diamond League is fast. So when the 6 or 7 biggest races of the year are all just rabbited out for the entire way, like if you can hang on, that's how Yared Nuguse ran 3:43. He had a rabbit for the entire 4 and a little bit laps. So when you have that in that race or in the 5,000 with Kajelcha or Kiplimo or Berahu Aragawi, when you've got 1 or 2 guys in some of these events who are just willing to push it, Faith Kipyegon on the women's side, we see a lot of fast times behind her. When you've got those athletes and the super shoes, that's when you kind of get the perfect storm of fast times, not just at the top, but all the way down the field.
I feel like the shoes on the track definitely help, but I feel that they're more prominent on the roads. Like, I was watching the Chicago Marathon last week, and like they like pan down on kitten shoes. It looked like he was running on clouds. Like they're like these prototypes are coming out next year. I feel like it allows them to train and recover much faster. And I know you wrote an amazing article about the amount of volume that he was doing prior to the event, and to be able to still come out and look fresh. It's amazing. That I mean, the shoes definitely have to help in that aspect, I would think.
Yeah, it's not just the race results, it's not just the day of the race. It's what they're able to do in training, which is more volume, harder, and they're recovering better. So all of that adds into it, and then you add in a little boost on race day, and that's what you get, what we're seeing right now in the marathon. And certainly it's more noticeable because the shoes look different than the previous generation. You really need to zoom in on the spikes to see a difference, whereas the shoes on the roads, it's very clear.
Very different. So we had this first year boom. Obviously, a ton of records went down. The shoes were a big deal. From your experience, are we going to start to expect to maybe see a plateau starting to occur as everyone really adjusts to this new shoes? Everyone runs faster. And until the next big thing, because I remember when I was in high school, Jonathan, you probably remember this too, the Zoom Milers came out. And those were the spikes to go to. And everyone was a little more aggressive. You were they forced you to be on the balls of your feet. They were super aggressive spikes. And I just remember, some of the guys that when I was a freshman, I think freshman or sophomore when they came out, and the upperclassmen going, these are way different than anything we've ever used. Like, these are really good spikes. Like, we had always used the Asics or the Brooks, and they weren't as good as these. Are we expecting to kind of see, like, next year, do you expect to see as many records go down? Or you were going to expect to see a little more of a plateau where the shoes are now everyone's using them and we're going to get what we get out of them, and we'll see a little more streamlining of how the results are?
Yeah, I think we'll continue to see some records because I think Jakob Ingebrigtsen is going to continue to get better. So the mile, he's getting the sort of lesser records out of the way. He's got the 2K, he got the 2 mile, even though that was like a fantastic run.
It was.
But pretty soon you're going to see him really targeting the big ones, the 1500, the mile, which he almost got. Well, he said it wasn't almost, but he ran 3:43 in Eugene, and the 3K, and then maybe one day the 5K. So he's not done. That women's 5,000 record, that's going under 14 minutes next year.
It's crazy. We're going to see women under 14 minutes.
Ridiculous.
Yeah. Amazing. So some events you will see these records continue to get broken, but we're in a transitional period. And I think maybe 5 years from now, once everyone in this generation has had their crack at the times, that's when you're going to start to see things settle in, and we can actually start comparing some performances to what we've seen in the recent past. That's when things are going to settle down. But I think it's still going to be pretty wild the next couple of years because we're going to see the best athletes of this generation who are continuing to improve. They're going to keep running faster.
Yeah. Now, I've also heard from a lot of people, usually a little older, that they feel like the art of racing has gone away and it's just become time trials. Every single meet has to be fast, and it's actually the art of actually, like, let's just race with tactics has kind of gone out of the window. It's all about time trials, and you can get sponsored. It's almost like people don't care as much about what place that they get as opposed to how fast that they run. Have you noticed that, or do you think that that's just a bunch of older people just complaining?
It's certain events. It's true. Like the 1500, a lot of the tactics have been removed for most of the races on the circuit just because you always know exactly how it's going to go. Yep. Jakob's going to take this thing for as long as he can, and everyone else is just going to try to hold on. But the beautiful thing is it's not totally removed because you've still got the World Championships. Mm-hmm. And we saw in that one, like, Josh Kerr takes him down. Like, you still have to have tactics in championship races for all of these things because there is no pacemaker. And if you're trying to pace one of these finals, you'll usually go. It's going to take a toll. You're breaking the wind for people. It's hard. It can be hard to do mentally. So, I think at the NCAA level, people are still getting this racing experience. They're going to have to chase times to qualify, but once they get to the NCAAs, once you get to the USAs, like once you get to the championships, racing is still around for the most part. You will see some races. The women's 1500, I mean, it's basically just Faith can just take it out and run everyone, and that's just like a fitness test. But most of these other ones, you've still got to have a strategy.
Faith reminds me of like peak Mo Farah in the 5K, 10K, where he would just be like I'm going to win this race. Just a matter of who takes second. Like, it was insane.
But do you feel that some of the athletes are not as concerned about place since they're focused on time because that's what the sponsors are looking at, and like how fast that you run as opposed to, I mean, like minus the Worlds or the Olympics, but like the rest of the races, is it more all about time, not about place?
I think place still matters. Some people will say like, "Hey, I ran 3:29, but I got 8th place." Like, I don't think they're totally ignoring it, but it's easier to be happy with 8th place when you ran really, really fast than if you got spanked. But I don't think that's totally. I don't know how it breaks down from the shoe company's perspective. If they're all just happy with people running fast times, they're not as concerned about place. But I do think from the athletes, there's still pride, and like look at that Florence Diamond League in the men's 5,000.
Oh yeah.
Woody Kincaid, Joe Klecker, they're both well under 13 minutes, but I don't think they're happy about finishing way down the field. So I do think place still matters even in these day and age of super fast times.
Good.
I think that we're at the perfect like spot where we are, where we have like so many. I feel like there's so many generational talents that we're seeing right now, more than I've seen in the past, and it just happens to blend with these super shoes. So now we're getting these guys like Jakob Ingebrigtsen would have been great in any generation, Faith Kipyegon, any generation. We're getting these. I think we're in like a perfect mix of like a golden age of track and field, because obviously you have Armando Duplantis, you have Anna Hall, who we didn't even mention,
Ryan Krauser.
Ryan Krauser, and even Kovac still doing his thing. Like, we have so many generational talents mixed with all this tech coming in that they're just going to lay out some more 20 plus year records. I think what we're seeing now, the next generation might have to it might be a struggle, because I think we're seeing some of the top best of all time while getting this technology as well. And it might be super difficult for the next generation to continue.
I see it similarly. I do think like Jakob's a generational talent. I think Faith Kipyegon is, but I also thought the same thing about Kipchoge a couple of years ago. I said, I know the shoes help, but this guy's the greatest marathoner I've ever seen. This world record's going to stand for 15, 20 years. And okay, he did hold the record for 5 years, but when he ran 2:01:09, I was like, that thing, no one's breaking that. And it barely lasted a year. So, I want to say that it's these athletes are crazy talents, but I think when I made that proclamation about Kipchoge, I underestimated the shoes. So I don't want to do that again on the track.
That's smart. Hedging your bets, because then you're going to have to write an article about, well, I was wrong. And that's one you never want to write as a journalist.
Yeah.
So do you think anybody saw what we saw, or anybody expected what we saw out of Ngus this year? Do you think anybody, I mean, I didn't think he'd run 3:43, although he did run really fast indoor season. Or do you think that was just like the absolute perfect race and he was just hanging on? Like, can he really be in an all-out race a true competitor, and does Jakob have to worry about him, or do you think that he'll always be one or two steps?
And I want to throw in there, before you jump in, one of our former guests, Jonathan Marcus, was a major critic of Yared Nuguse when he won that indoor national championship. And, it was a ridiculous comment. But anyone that goes back in the archives and why haven't you said anything? I'm not going to disavow Jonathan Marcus. Jonathan was a nice guy, but he was a dumb comment. Continue with your Nuguse analysis here.
Yeah, I think Jakob has to worry about him, because what we see the rest of the Diamond League season is Jakob would just pull away, and either he was gone with 200 to go, or he was clearly the best over the last 200, and no one was touching him. Yared pushed him for a lot of that home straight. Jakob did not get a lot of separation. When he did, it came quite late. So that to me says, okay, and before I thought Yared needs kind of a specific scenario. He needs to be able to make sure he's close with 200 to go, and then maybe you can close a little faster. He needs something like what we saw from Josh Kerr. But he can't just beat Jakob if it's a pure test of fitness. And my mind changed after that Eugene race. I was like, oh, actually, no. He is pretty close to Jakob in terms of their fitness. And if he's not done improving, if he takes another little jump next year and Jakob only takes a small jump or stays where he's at, you could see Yared running faster in these time trial style races, which used to be Jakob's exclusive domain. So I think he has to be concerned based on how close Yared was in Eugene.
And they're young. It's not like one's past their prime. They're both young and hungry, and I can't wait to see how this all.
And it truly seems to me like Jakob welcomes the competition, because I love the press conference before that where he's just like, run with me and you'll get the American record. And it's like, I think that as much as Jakob has to worry about him, he's kind of fired up. He seems like the type of guy, it's like, finally I have someone to race with. Like, this is going to be great. I'm not all alone. And you could tell like he was excited. He was excited for Yaron Augusta. He shattered the championship and was, the record in America and was right there with them. Like, I think he'd be ecstatic if he gets the mile record and then the mile record becomes the third place because Yaron Augusta gets it right behind him. Like, I feel like he's the type of guy that isn't going to look at it and be like, oh, I have a rival now. I can't be dominant. He's going to be like, okay, if this guy beats me, I'm just going to be fire under my ass. Like, I think he's pumped about this development.
You're absolutely right, Alex. That's exactly what he said after the Bowerman Mile was, it's good for the sport to have more people running at this level, and it's good for me because look, if I was just running way ahead of everyone else, I could just go back to Norway and do it on my local track. I don't need to go to the Diamond Leagues to do it. But now he's got someone to push him. Yeah, he loves it. And I think it's an awesome reaction. It makes next year even more exciting.
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, the only disappointing race that I think Jakob had all year was his beer mile. I was expecting him to go sub 5 minutes, but 5:20, I get it. He had to travel home a couple days after World. I was like, you can break 5 minutes, Jakob. Come on.
He needs Nick Simmons to go train him. Nick needs to go train him because Nick is the originator of the world record beer mile and really making it a big deal.
Yeah, I think Jakob, he's got the running down. I just don't think he's drinking all that much in the season. He doesn't strike me as some guy who just goes out and pounds beers after his races. Yeah.
We got to find out how many times he threw up, because we all know if you throw up, that's an extra lap. So we do have to find out how many times he booted.
Maybe he ran 5 laps. Maybe he ran a 2,000 meter,
Maybe he did to make it fair. So I want to ask you, wrapping up a bow on the season, what was I know we talked a lot about it. I think we kind of gave our opinions, but what was your overall impression from start to finish last year, XC, indoor, outdoor? What was your impression of the season and the year?
I think it was great. I think this was maybe the best Diamond League season we've ever had start to finish. We've had some seasons where there've been a bunch of great meets, but this one, I don't know if there was a stinker on the whole season. Even there were a few of them, like Stockholm, I was thinking, oh, that's not going to be that good. But then we still got some great performances. I mean, it was really, really fun to follow the whole sport season long. So I think the Diamond League, people are like, oh, the Diamond League needs to be fixed. We need to make all these changes. Like, no, I feel like if regular sports fans could just see the Diamond League, they'd be like, all right, this mostly makes sense. This is a pretty awesome product. It's in 2 hours. It's compact. There's not that much dead time. Like, Diamond League season rocked. The problem is we got to get this in front of new eyeballs. And people are saying, oh, we need to make all these changes to fix the product. I just don't know how much you can improve on it. I think the product's pretty great. It's more getting people to getting people to find it.
That to me is the biggest. Not everybody has Peacock, or they're willing to pay for Peacock. If it was on ESPN or even Fox Sports or somewhere, I do feel like people would just stumble by and be like, what is this? And Alex and I kind of differ on this. I love the lights. I think they make it much easier for casual fans to follow. And like you say, like I was watching the meet with my fiance. She's like, I'm like, look, if he stays ahead of those lights, he's got the world record. So like it's easier to explain. I just thought, to me, that's like the first down line in football. Like it makes it a much more visually appealing event, and I just think it's great to get those casual fans there. But you're right. What channel is this on? Is it on Flow Sports? Is it on Peacock? Is it on NBC? Is it on,
And you got to pay for it all. And you got to pay for it all if you want to see it. So, there is that. And again, my thing is, I like that they're trying, but to me, the lights is the hockey puck with the tail back in the 90s. That's all I see it as, which went after 2 seasons.
Oh, see, I think the lights in general are good. I just don't think you need it for every race. I think for these record attempts is helpful. And I think for some of them, whether it's going for a meaningful time, it's good. I don't think you need to have a rabbit in every single 800 meters. It's the events. We've got enough good guys in there that you can just say, hey, we don't need a pacer, or we don't need a pacer in every single 1,500. So yeah, I'll kind of split the difference with you guys on that
And
one.
you don't need lights in high school meets.
Right.
I mean, unless the kid's trying to go sub 4, I think that maybe I would do the lights for a sub 4 attempt.
maybe
that might
like
be fair.
like an invitational mile or something, but you don't need it for the 12th heat of the 4x8.
Yeah. So I thought it was an awesome season as well. I thought we saw really great stuff from, like, even if you go down to high school and college level, like we saw so many good runs, fast times. I thought nationals were good at the high school level as well. So I thought last year was fun. I think, this year is already starting to shape up. You already mentioned the Nutty Comb, which looked like a friggin' Nats,
Like a pre-Nats. Yeah.
NAU stamped their flag saying, hey, we're the team to beat both men and women's side.
Both sides, yeah.
So, Jonathan, what was your impression so far of the XC, Nutty Comb, everything going on?
Yeah, very impressed by NAU. The women scored even fewer points than their men, and their men won the meet comfortably. So really impressive stuff by both of them. I expected that from the men. The women, I wasn't sure because they're getting a big test in North Carolina State. And granted, North Carolina State was missing two of their best athletes who, Sam Bush and Maris Tanisma. We don't know what level they'll be at for the national meet next month. But you scored, 52 points at Nutty Comb? You're going to be the red hot favorite for NCAA championship. And the only reason they're not is because NC State is so good as well, and that they've won the last two titles. They're returning a good chunk of that team. But that was really impressive. And then I was blown away by how good Parker Balby was, how fast she ran. This was
tough, ask you that.
Tough conditions, right? It was 19 mile per hour winds. It was rain. The course was muddy. And she goes out there and runs 1917 course record, takes down Caitlin Toohey, who's basically been unbeatable in cross country the last 2 years. That was really, really impressive and shapes up for a heck of a rematch in Virginia next month.
Especially after Toohey, like Parker had such a big lead last year at NCAAs, and Toohey just walked her down and went right by her. It was good to see that, although Toohey kind of went out more with her this time, and then it was Parker who kind of pulled away on those rough conditions. That was a heck of a statement, I thought. And
I'm hoping that Parker isn't peaking a little too soon, though. That's my only concern when you see something like this. And obviously, she's been in great shape the last 2 years, right? She is one of the best female runners in the nation, easily top 2 on XC, obviously. And I'm hoping that she isn't peaking too soon. I know the coaches over there in Florida are fantastic as well, and they're doing their best to, everyone schedules and maps out, when you want to get to championship season to be peaking. I'm just hoping that she has enough left in the tank for championship season. I think she will, but it's always a concern as a runner, right? When you're watching and you see a great performance like this at a mid-season meet, and it's like, awesome, but let's hope there's gas left in the tank there.
Absolutely. I feel pretty confident she'll be very, very good at nationals. And I mean, you want to see her be at her absolute best, but you look at the last 2 years, she ran well at NCAAs in 2021. She ran great at NCAAs last year. Just she got beat by another fantastic athlete. So I don't think she missed time to peak last year. I think she just got beat by someone who is better than her. This year, this was her first race of the season. So you'd hope that she would continue to get even better. The thing is, I think Caitlin Toohey could do the exact same thing. We were only 4 or 5 weeks away. We're not that far from nationals, but I think both of them, because it was the season opener, can be even better in Virginia.
So it sounds like you would give the NAU men a better chance of being more dominant at nationals than the women because of the NC State factor. Do you see anybody who can challenge the NAU men if they're all on? Because it seems like they always peak at Nats and they're always ready to go. They do such an amazing job there. So I felt too that the men are just on a more dominant progression than the women. I mean, it's great to see both programs doing such an amazing job, but I feel like that X factor of the NC State girls not being there makes it a little more uncertain.
I think both of them have a very good rival, and NC State could be, depending on the health of Tanisma and Bush. But the men, I think Oklahoma State could be right there. They didn't race over the weekend. They don't really like to do the Wisconsin pre-nats thing, but they tied with them at nationals last year. OK State lost more, in terms of, who they graduated, but they got a couple of big time new additions, Dennis Kipengedich and Brian Misal from Kenya, who I think could step in and be top 10, top 20 guys right away. So I think it's shaping up as a two-horse race on both the men's and women's sides, and I couldn't tell you who is more favored to win. I think NAU has a good chance to win both races, but I think it's also possible they come home with no titles because OK State and NC State could be that good.
And that would be, a fitting upset in the world of running, right? Because running is so unpredictable on any given day. And, your fifth runner could be a little bit weaker that day. And then boom, that's the difference, right? So, any given day is it, but that would be it would be shocking if NAU isn't holding championship in at least one, men or women's. That would be, I think, a big shock to the running world. Again, obviously, OK State and NC State are very good and can do it, but just the way NAU has been, especially in recent history, just being the dominant, distance running school, it would be a surprise to not see that. So on that note, I want you, Jonathan, to give your predictions. Who are we going to see as individual champions in men and women, and who are your NCAA champions in XC for teams as well?
That is hard.
I know it is.
Yeah, because I even when I have all the data in front of me, the tough thing about that question is you never know who's training through these things. We only get, it's like an iceberg. We get to see the results of a couple meets. We don't get to see any of the training teams are doing the whole year. We don't know they ran 100 miles that week. Look at Charles Hicks last year at Stanford. The regular season, he's okay. The NCAA meet, he's amazing. And he's like, yeah, well, I was really just training for this one meet, and I was in a big training block. So that's my caveat for saying don't take these picks to the bank. Not that you could. You can't really gamble on NCAA cross country, but
we should be able to.
It'd be cool.
We should be able to gamble on running. That is one of the big things that Sarah Slattery brought up to us when we had her on, and that was her idea to gamble, and I want to take that to the bank, literally.
Yeah, it would be interesting. Then you see some lines on the World Championships and Olympics a little bit on DraftKings, but not every event. If they've got so many other weird sports on there, you would think they would have more track action than they do. But in terms of the picks, all right, I'm still going to ride with Tui. I know she just got smacked around the last 2K by Parker Valby, but she's the defending champion. I trust her. I think she'll be ready when it counts. So I'm going to go Tui. Individually on the men's side, that's even tougher because there are 10 guys who could win this race. Going into to Wisconsin, I thought it was going to be Habtom Samuel from New Mexico because that guy has run 27:20 for 10K. He was top 20 at World Cross in the senior race last year, this year. Just an absolute stud. And he ran fine, but
Harvard.
He got beat. Yeah, Graham Blanks gets the win. Graham Blanks obviously in that conversation. Nico Young, Drew Bosley. I think if I had to pick right now, I'm probably going Kai Robinson, though, because
one of our former athletes of our former, we had Ricardo Santos on the show a little while ago. It's one of his athletes.
Yeah. NCAA 5K, 10K champion, Stanford. You talked to them the last couple of years. They kind of trained through the regular season a little bit. And he's got a great kick if it comes down to it. So I think I'll go with Kai, but there are a dozen guys who could win the men's race. Team-wise, oh, man. NC State's just such a question mark with some of their women. And because of that, I think I'm going to go with the team I view to be – I have more faith they'll have all their women when they need them, and that's NAU. So I think I will go NAU on the women's side. And on the men's side, I can't pick against NAU. I try to do this. I get cute and say, oh, yeah, they got beat by Stanford, the Nutty Cone meet last year, or oh, Notre Dame, you put their top 5 on paper. They should be. This team has just mastered the meet. They show up every year and they run their best race of the season. And
it's true.
Oklahoma State's done very well at nationals the last 3 years. They've been on the podium all 3 times. So it's not as if they can't do it, but man, I've been made to look silly picking against NAU in the past, and I don't want to do it this time. So I'm going to pick an NAU sweep.
It's like Occam's razor, right? The most likely result will be the result. So you kind of just don't go against it. And, I like what you said about Kai Robinson, though, because I think the fact that there is like 10 guys that can win it will set him up, because when you have that many individuals, there's less likely a person willing to kind of like take it out, because he wants to let these guys hang on him. And that's perfect for an athlete like Kai, because he's going to be happy to let a pack of 9 dudes hang out with him to just challenge them the last 1K and see what they could do.
Though I do think you might see NAU do what they did last year with Bosley and Young. They have done that before when they've got 2 really good guys, is they just send those guys up front and try to string things out. I wouldn't be surprised if they do it again, but they did do that last year, and who was the winner? It was a Stanford guy. It was Charles Hicks who went with them. So Kai Robinson might be this. He might just replace Charles Hicks and end up out kicking both of them.
I hate that strategy, because being at Marist, Iona used to do it at every freaking MAC meet, where they would just send their top guys out and just take the race out. And a strategy I'm not a fan of, because it's happened to me, but it's obviously a great strategy to use. If you have that level of athlete, you should absolutely use it. Now, before we jump out of here, I want to give a shout out to Connor Mantz. Ran an amazing race at the Chicago Marathon, 2:07, breakout performance.
2:08, right?
Huh? No, it was 2:07.47.
Oh, 47. Okay.
I have it right here. He ran 6th overall, top American at that.
The Americans ran great.
Ran great overall. Galen Rupp barely missing the Olympic qualifying time there. So, Connor Mantz, I got to give him a shout out. 2-time national champion over at BYU for XC. So, just want to give a shout out to a good American. Obviously 2 hours flat, basically took the whole entire thing out. That was the big noise, but man, a 2:07, and from a young guy too. Connor's not old. He's in his like prime, getting into marathon shape. So, to have a good long season. So shout out to him. Anything you have to say? Were you surprised to see Connor come out and run like that at Chicago?
No, that's how I thought he would run. He was talking ahead of time that he was in shape to run even faster, and he was on pace to run, high 2:06s for quite a long time in that race. So, no, I think he viewed that as essentially the bare minimum, getting under the Olympic standard of 2:08.10. So I'm not surprised at all. I thought he'd be 2:07 or better.
That's great, and love to hear that. And Jonathan, it's always a pleasure having you on the show. It really is.
Oh, absolutely.
I love coming on. Thank you for having me. It's great. Again, I love talking track and field, and I love talking about it with people who are as passionate as I am. So this was a lot of fun.
Did we ask you last time how you would fix the sport if you had the magic ball?
Oh, I don't know if you did.
Oh, so we're asking you this time. If you could fix track and field and you had the power to just say, hey, Jonathan Gault says this, we're doing it, what would you do to fix the sport of track and field?
For the casual fan.
For the casual, yes. For the casual to enjoy the
sport. More eyeballs on it and get these athletes paid the money that they deserve.
Yes. And the journalists too that cover it.
I think I'm going to steal Chris Derrick's answer when I asked him this a couple of years ago, but basically I set the schedule for some of these top athletes. Like that's the NFL, you just say, hey, Kansas City, you're playing in Chicago this weekend, or you're playing the Chargers this weekend, and you got to go. And we know we're going to see Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes and
Taylor Swift.
Guys. Yep. Maybe Taylor Swift. She doesn't show up for everyone. But
get her out of my sport that I love.
But this is like, if I just know, okay, Sidney McLaughlin-Veroni, you're running these 4 Diamond Leagues, and this is impossible to enforce. It's never going to happen. But then fans can just plan. They're like, all right, I know they're going to be running there. I can book my all right, people aren't going to be flying to Europe just to watch a race, but we can know
LA
ahead of
Grand
time.
Prix. The LA Grand Prix was the perfect example of when you would love to be able to do something like that.
Yeah, like these are the schedules for the big athletes. These are the dates we got to mark down. Okay, this is the showdown for this one, and we can start building it up instead of just saying, oh, actually, yeah, they withdrew 2 days before the race or something like that. Mm-hmm. Like, if I could have the power to set these schedules and set these matchups, we're not going to get Fred. I don't want to bash Marcel Jacobs because I do actually think he was legitimately like sick and injured last year. But how many times have we seen these mouth-watering matchups on paper and then someone ends up pulling out? And I just don't know if you can fix that, because if people are any less than 100%, they are going to pull out. They're going to say it's not worth it. And I wish that we just didn't have that. And you could say, all right, you guys have to do this race against each other.
Yeah, definitely.
And I wish that we could have more of them here in the States, because, track is more popular across the world. It's just here, and we have all these wonderful athletes. And I think you mentioned it earlier too. Knowing like promoting it on TV and saying, it's going to be on this channel at this time. Like how long do we see things on TV or advertisements or on the internet or on TV? Like Jake Paul is fighting someone in 3 months. And he's not near the athlete that like these people are. But that's the part that just bothers me is like people just don't know where to find it. They don't know what it is. And I do like all of the things that they're doing to make it more fan friendly in a sense. But if the fans can't find it, they're not watching it on TV. And like you said, how excited were people to go to the LA, Grand Prix to watch Sid? And then she pulls out 2 days prior. And it's just tough. But there are so many athletes who just pull out of meets last minute. Like how many times did we see, the announcer's like, well, this person was supposed to be in lane 8. Like they pull out 5 minutes prior to the even start of the event.
It's a meet director's nightmare, to be quite honest, because how can you actually promote? It's like really tough to actually promote. And I think that's part of the problem. And to piggyback with what you and Chris Derrick said, and we've said it plenty of times, we need a deep pocket, like you mentioned, because we need contracts. That would be the one thing, like UFC, boxing, all these things, they're individual sports. PGA, you sign a contract. I am now a subcontractor with this promotion, and I have to do X amount of events with this promotion. And that would solve everything, because I forget who he mentioned it to, and I asked them, I'm like, if it was like 50K, guaranteed 50K to run 6 events. And the guy, I think it might have been Clayton, and he's like, I think every single American athlete, including your Sydneys and Noah Lyles, would jump right on that. Because it's
guaranteed Bracey.
Money.
Marvin Bracey.
Might have been Marvin Bracey, because he's like, it's guaranteed money. We don't get that. We don't get guaranteed money. So if it was,
the top guys do, but it doesn't.
Yeah, but down. In general, they don't. But I think if we could figure out a way, and again, that goes to you. We need a deep pocket, right? We need a deep pocket, someone that can come in here and start a promotion, promote it well, and get some big names. It's probably not going to be Sid or someone, but it will be your Clayton Murphys. It'll be your Marvin Bracey's. It'll be your people that can get draws. And, we're going to have you guaranteed we can promote this season that you guys are going to be at these meets. And I think that would be huge for the sport, but also very difficult to do. So that's it. That's my little aside. And Jonathan, as always, you give great answers. And once again, he's Jonathan Gault, staff writer at letsrun.com. If you are not reading the articles that he's putting up and you're a running fan, then what the hell are you doing? They're fantastic articles. They're very insightful, very well researched. He talks to the best in the sport. So definitely go give him a look. Go follow him on Twix. I'm going to call it Twix from now on. Twitter, X, Twix, whatever it is. At jgault13. Gault is spelled Gault. And so jgault13. Go follow him there. And I do have a bone to pick with you, because you are not following Talking in Ovals. And we are about to be in a fight over this.
Okay, I can fix that once I hang up.
So that has to be amended. But once again, we are Talking in Ovals. Dave, do you have anything else before we jump out of here?
It's just always great to have someone with the reference and the track mind and the knowledge to come on here and talk about, because sometimes we get caught up in, what's going on at the high school level or college level. And to have someone with such knowledge of what's going on with the pro athletes who actually talks to the athletes, has a good feel of the athlete's perspective, it's always refreshing and wonderful. So Jonathan, thanks a lot for coming.
Yes. Once again, if you like what you heard, like, share, follow, subscribe, rate 5 stars, Spotify and iTunes. Spread this word of mouth far and wide. Find us on the socials at Talking in Ovals. We'll be back next week with another great show, as we always put on. We will see everyone then. See you later.